everybody. My dad thinks his podcast is amazing, so please subscribe, give it 5 stars or whatever, and maybe he'll finally stop talking about it. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So today we have another special guest on, but before we get into that, I want to remind everybody to go to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share, review, all of the things. Who is our guest today, Ryan?
Today is a good friend of mine, all the way from the United Kingdom this week, so we're hitting another continent. So let's welcome in my good friend, Tim Taylor. There he is. Hey, Tim. Look at this guy. He's got the logo going and everything.
I like it.
Can you hear us okay? Tim, can you hear us, buddy? There he is.
There we go.
Nice.
How are you, Tim? Yeah, I love the logo, buddy. That's nice. You come prepared.
No plug, but it's on the YouTube.
That's right.
So, very good. So great to see you both. Jessica, I've been dying to meet you.
Hello.
And let me get it right. Let's put it into context. The reason being, I have said to Ryan, and I've said it before, every man who goes on sobriety needs a wife like you.
Oh, gosh. You might not think that way if I was your wife, but I appreciate the compliment.
That's brilliant. No, sorry. I forgot.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, no worries at all.
It's very nice to meet you. We've been very excited about this episode.
Yeah, well, all the way from the UK.
I love it.
I love it. How's the has the weather got any...
We got a bit of Christmas in the house already.
Oh yeah.
That's good. So the lights are on behind me, but there's trees through the house.
That's right.
We're a 12-tree Christmas.
Yeah, how's the weather been over there? I know when you and I talked yesterday, you guys were having bit of a spell.
We've had Storm Dara come through, and yeah, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing global warming at its worst, and people who said it's not kidding themselves. This has come through. 2 people have been killed.
Oh wow!
Which is an absolutely, and that sums it up. 2 people died, and that shouldn't be happening in a country that's just not used to these sort of storms. So we are, as I look at we're just so out of touch with it. We do not learn by our mistakes, do we? And we can say that.
No, unfortunately not.
I was going to say, I think that's a global thing.
Yeah.
But it's been rough. Very rough.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. So I wanted to get started with first question is, what was it that changed your relationship with alcohol?
Wow. Yeah. A long time coming. But I suppose one of the key factors for me, if I say, let's say 500 days, was going back to the 10th of July, 2023. I was driving down a road, and I've been in a job for around 4 months working with volunteers on a vineyard. Part of my last 5 years of my life have been 100% working in vineyards, learning to taste wines, and do all the things that someone who works in a vineyard does. But for some bizarre reason, I have been at home for a very long few days at the wrong end of the bottle. And I'd gone to work on the Tuesday and I've got the app on the phone, and I put the Reframe app on, and Nancy had a meeting. I pulled in to the side of the road. I was delivering wine on the day, and I changed my life because I realized I was kidding myself. I was working with people who needed care and help. They were volunteers. They were of all sorts of backgrounds, from personal problems, care dog with one of the guys. And I thought, I don't deserve this. What the hell? Never mind my family and all the rest of it. This suddenly made me realize there was something seriously wrong in my mind to carry on down the road I was going. So yeah, that day it changed my life. Changed my life. And how would Nancy changed my life?
Yeah.
And I thought it does to me.
Yeah, I love seeing you on those, the good morning in the UK meetings. Very early for us, but obviously afternoon for you. So I'm assuming that's the meeting
And I
you're
mean,
talking about.
it is an important, and as my journey's evolved, I've kind of like so many that have been on the Reframe.
Hmm.
I've experimented with different groups and trying to find, where your comfort zone is. At those early days is so important. And I think, I think we all, I'm sure you've seen this, Jessica, we all try and run before we can walk.
That's right.
Oh gosh. That's just the human experience, I
Yes.
think, too. I think a lot of people don't realize that when someone is struggling with addiction or mental health, there are very real human experiences that play into that, even if you don't have those struggles.
Mhm.
So it's a compilation of things,
Mm.
I mean, life happens whether you're in sobriety or not. And you're right. Like, you have those moments of, how do I, I'm listening to Kayla Lyon's book right now, and the only way, what is it? The only way out is through.
Yes.
And I think that that's like a very good thing for everybody to live by, right? But I think
Absolutely, 100%.
when you're talking about, you got sober because you were surrounded by these people and you didn't feel that you like deserve to be within that space, that also plays back to the opposite of addiction is community, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
so isolation is definitely what feeds into that. What do you say, Ryan? If you
Yeah,
live with dogs long enough, you get fleas.
Yeah, pretty much,
I,
And that's a
yeah,
big
well,
thing too,
I've
I've
actually
seen.
got 3 lying in front of me now, looking at me.
We have lots
No,
of
but
animals, so
the other side to that, Jessica, was that I sat there and when I finished the show, the worst thing was I kind of, I had to take this moment where I thought, I'm going to have to now go home to my wife and my family. And because cut the long story short, I'd been made from COVID, like so many people. I'd muddled through those last few months of COVID. My drinking had probably got to its all-time worst because I already knew I was facing redundancy at the end of it. That had been made very clear to me. So it was, and also then at that point, my wife we'd had to find some rent. So she was renting a place, luckily just down the road. So even though I'd stayed in the property where we were living, she was renting. I'd been in a type of job where vocational work, I'd been supplied homes all my life. So this wasn't just going to be, this was going to be, are you real? Are you, we're going through all this, and now you're deciding to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't work with drink. I can't do that. But I did it. And I'm here to prove that sometimes, unless you do that stuff, push that button, you just will have, you'll be like me in a continual, revolving door, just looking, not even seeing the way out. You'll just keep going there. And it is the hardest thing. Right? But when I pressed that button and said, yeah, that's got to be done.
I think too that there's a lot of relevant science outside of just like the mental chemistry of it. Like a body in motion stays in motion.
Mhm.
And so it goes back to that, in the midst of, I don't want to call it chaos. I don't know why that is the first word that comes to mind, but like you're going through all these things, right? And they're piling up. You're already moving. So you think, I'm already on this trajectory of trying to accomplish things. So I might as well go ahead and get sober and wrap that up in there too. And that doesn't work for everybody, but I'm definitely like that. Like if there's not a lot
Mm,
going on in life, in my downtime, I don't accomplish a lot of things because I'm still. And it's just the motivation to get up or to get started. But if you're already like busy, then I feel like when life is, again, wrong word, but it's the word that's popping in, is like chaotic, I'm more
oh, totally.
productive because I'm already a body in motion. So what's one more thing to add to that? And I hear
Yeah,
that a lot of people in recovery too.
it's funny. It's funny when you say your downtime is your quiet time.
Hmm.
That's for me, and I think I see so many people on the app during meetings that I look at them and I'm thinking there is the same as me. One of the things you can't do on the app is, or what you don't get in life is which book to read first. The Bible is the only book that starts at chapter one. The rest of life is, the rest of life isn't so simple. And I now, and that's one of the key things that I now, through my journaling, through everything else, is I am slowly sort of saying to myself, okay, one of the first priorities I didn't do, which I should have done, was address my mental health. Because my mental health was going to be the key to it. And the key to that was that I've been suffering a long time and I didn't, like, how can I put it? You don't want to see it. You've moved on in life. And I'd moved on so long, I'd almost forgotten a day 21 years ago. My son is 18 this month. Sorry, 21 this month. And 21 years ago, about a month or so after he was born, I ended up in a hospital. They thought I'd had a stroke. It was a culmination of mental exhaustion, alcohol, and a continuous stream of not sitting still. And the reason I wasn't sitting still was because for the first time in my life, so I could say my journey to what, and I don't want to frighten people with that, but personally for me, my journey 21 years ago started on the birth of my son when I held him on my arms. And a few weeks later, they were having to care for me in a catatonic state in hospital because my brain had to switch off. And it still took me. I work in a very, people say, and this is the other thing people don't notice, and I see it now every day because I work in a bar. I didn't want to go back to being in a bar, but it's where it took me after my sobriety kicked in, and maybe that's what I needed. But when I came out of the hospital, I I still hadn't realised that that was still rooted because my environment and people see it. We see it in this job now, in this sobriety world, because everything about Canada revolves around drink. My own work revolved around drink. I've looked after multimillionaires I entertained them and at the same time was being entertained. And it was surplus. It was there. It was free at hand all the time. Just the one Mrs. Wembley. Oh no. It was more than just always was. I was a professional huntsman. And I'm not knocking huntsmen everywhere because not all huntsmen are the same. But before I started my day entertaining 120 people galloping across the countryside, I started with 2 brown cows, whiskey and milk. I never questioned the amount of whiskey. I knew I could taste it. But it was part of that character. Testosterone city. When you're working in fast and furious jobs and it's all about all the time, you just have to sometimes move to the suburbs. It took me a long time to do that. But let me tell you, once you find them, they're a beautiful place to live.
Yeah, and you and I've talked about that, Tim. Everybody thinks, just because we're, a man, you're supposed to act a certain way, be a certain way, not allowed to show emotion. And, that's something I've learned, especially, over the past 18 months, is there's nothing wrong with showing emotion. Actually, I think
Absolutely.
showing it is being more of a man, person, whatever you want to call it, um, than just not showing anything off and shutting yourself off from everybody. It seems to be, especially for our mental health, that has really helped um, people like you and me. That's definitely helped us out in a world that's really, especially in our worlds, it's been testosterone driven.
I mean, and people forget, if you surround yourself with egos, at some point they are going to affect you.
Yeah,
You know, all those people around you, you know the pressure is on you to do it and perform, and I do know I've had friends in the past in my own, when I was a professional huntsman, that I know literally survived on drink. Their nerves were tempered by drink. Uh, and I can look back and say, yeah, I didn't notice it then because I was doing it. To get to this stage is absolutely, like going back to what I was saying, it was as much about mental health as it was about, and when I took that plunge on day one with Nancy, as I say, going back to what I said, you don't have an order of things. And for me, crucially, the mental health thing has really been more towards this. Once that passed that year, my first year was more just getting my shit together, quite
yeah,
frankly, and getting used to the idea that I'm never, ever, ever going to drink again. And it doesn't matter what goes in front of me now. It doesn't work for me. But I started. If I had one book that I would is at the top of my list now, and that was the one that kick-started me, was Atomic Habits, James Clear,
yeah,
because I had to. I probably needed it 21 years ago, but hey ho, what's gone is gone. But yeah, that was the first book that I actually did read and get. Well, I use a lot of Audible. I say to people, whatever your media is to do it or platform you use, whether it's holding books or, now with like this, we are talking from where America to England. There are no barriers in healthcare anymore, or mindset, or mind care, or mental health, because you can talk to anyone in the world at any time.
Yeah, you can. I'm going to circle back to something really fast. You are the first, and this doesn't, minimize anybody else, but you are the first man who's actually talked about being a parent and sobriety and mental health because, you know, um, women obviously, just because, we are the creators of life. We are the uterus owners. So we have, this physical connection, and alcohol is a very physical thing. But what I kept thinking in my head when you said, um, we had our son and then months later I was in the hospital. Um, I, though I don't struggle with addiction, I have a lot of mental health issues. And it made me think of my mom lived in Alaska when my daughter was born. And we've all, just like with Ryan, we've always been world travelers. My brother lived in France for a year. We grew up, my mom's like, I've always wanted to live in Alaska. Y'all take care of yourselves. I'm going to Alaska. And I called her at 3 o'clock in the morning, our time. And I was like boohoo crying, breast milk everywhere, newborn baby. And I said, why did you let me do this? Why did you not tell me? I love her so much, but I hate this so much too. I'm so tired. And I think that, what I heard you say was you see that, when you're drinking and you're living life and it's just you, hurting yourself, doing things to yourself is not so much of a huge responsibility. It should be. I mean, that's what you learn first, is your relationship with yourself is supposed to be the biggest one in your life. But who actually thinks that way before they go to therapy or get resources? So when you see this small person that did not consent to be in this world for the first time, and they depend on you for everything, the responsibility of that
Oh,
is
I still remember the
overwhelming.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you know, and
and
when you say that, and I remember, and that was, wow, yeah,
yeah, I mean,
sorry,
it goes back
I
to that
interrupted you.
when you got sober saying, I'm not worthy, and I resonate with that because I had moments like that. I mean, and I didn't have postpartum or anything, thank goodness, but you can ask Ryan, the first like year of our daughter's life, he's like, are we ever going to go out into the world again? And I'm like, no, like, what are you talking about? And yeah, because it's a huge responsibility, and a part of you feels like I'm not worthy of this role. Like, what was I thinking doing this? This is such a beautiful, this is the biggest privilege in the world. So I appreciate you as a father talking about that, because, women, it's still stigmatized with women, but it's still also more palatable for a woman to talk about that than it is for a man. So I really appreciate that you as a man are like, I took a look at my son, and I mean, it literally ended me in the hospital. It was too big. It was too much.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'll be quite honest with you as well. The world I worked in was and I still live in, and I don't want to offend anybody here, but it is a very much, I don't know when you've read in the news, UK farmers at the moment are going through all this problem. My son is an active member of the local young farmers. He does they call it green wellies or yellow wellies. Can't remember which one it is, but it's a mental health thing. And they came to the pub not long after I started working back in it, and they had an evening for the young farmers about mental health. So, one of the nice things to see in what was and still is in many areas, a very male-dominated vocation slash, job-wise, family-wise, farmers still very much father to son. It's still very much not a good. My daughter, I mean, in fairness, in the UK now, the young farmers do allow a lot. It's a lot more open, and they allow people who aren't farming in, so it gives them a little bit broader idea of what's going on there in their own communities. But again, the farmer, no offence to the young lads who come for a drink, they are still farmers, and they are still very masculine, and they're still very, and I find it refreshing to see my son so active, and he does that through sport as well with rugby in the UK. We're a big rugby family. There's a lot more I see even in the rugby club. My daughter played rugby for a little while. She's taken the time out for it while she's at college, but she may get back to it. But it's great to see the mental health side of sport growing and growing, because it's long behind where it should be, but it's getting there.
It's
And
that
in
way
the
here
UK,
too. Yeah, it's that way here too. I mean, you see like, football, well, American, what should be called tackle ball. It's a very aggressive male sport too here. I mean, since you've been sober, you've even noticed, and you've talked about that. It's these men who are literally bred and raised to run at each other as fast as they can and hit each other as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And with that, it is getting better, but especially when I was a kid, injuries were, you go into a tent and they shoot you up with steroids and you get sent back out. And, Ryan played hockey professionally for a very long time. And he's talked about how being on the ice, or when he would get hurt or when he was going through something, being like, well, you go out there and you just take it out on the ice. I like that we're closing that gap, and I don't think what you said is offensive at all, because I think that there's nothing wrong with being masculine and macho and being what seems to be those traditional stereotypes, because that means nothing about your relationship with you, right? So I like that those
Absolutely.
lines are getting blurred. Like, if that's you,
Well,
be who
there's
you are,
yeah,
and you can still be healthy or sober and, see
Yeah,
a therapist. You can still do all those things and be what
yeah,
traditionally is a macho man. Like, they're not
yeah.
mutually exclusive.
yeah, and
Extremes on that. I mean, when I was actually riding professionally, I actually knew people who would take a fall on a Monday, and literally the painkillers and the whiskey went in for the Friday,
yeah,
and you'd be back on the horse. And how people then, if then something went wrong, I would think to myself, "Oh, no, that was. I can tell you exactly what went wrong there."
yeah,
Because,
Yeah.
and you see it in professional jockeys, that keep all the pressures of being a performance person take its toll. And I had a career spanning over 21 years as a professional huntsman. And I tell you now, it, 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 I now think I am so lucky to be standing and sitting here talking to you, because I have lost good friends recently, um, and I just think, wow, and I know exactly what it was,
Yeah,
exactly
that
well,
what it
I've experienced some of the same. It's you know, I didn't stay in big, great contact with a lot of guys I played with, but through Facebook and social media and things like that. And I see as some have perished over the years. Um, it's crazy because it's one of those things where I knew certain people had issues, as we played together and stuff like that because you're family. I mean, it's you're around these guys all the time.
was. Absolutely,
And
yeah.
now that I see, and I really got to commend, a lot of the major sports teams that have hired therapists and things like that, and mental coaches.
Mm.
I see it more and more in the NHL now, and even in the minor leagues. That to me is great. They have somebody on staff literally all the time to help these guys through, mentally more than
Yeah.
physically. Because mentally it really takes a toll on you. I mean, being mentally injured is a thing. I don't care what anybody says; it's a damn thing. It can put you down.
Oh,
Now we
yeah, and I
have
mean, we
people that
carry, we carry,
call into
we carry
work.
it from you, don't we?
Yeah,
Brian, we carry it from you. We carry it from you.
yeah,
Um, I put a thing on actually, uh, sort of leading on from that. I kind of, um, if people who don't realize, another reason I am so regularly on Nancy is because, and I will bring his name straight into it, Saul, as he is now.
mm,
You've all met Saul.
yeah,
And, and same with Peter, as I call Peter, they're both my brothers from another mother. And we all fell into this amazing place with Saul, sober nights. But I'm going to be quite honest. The sober nights, I have looked at. I haven't been onto many men's groups yet. I am, I am looking to go and do some more at some point. But again, as I said, I'm spending this first 500 to whatever days it takes to getting my mental state right. I have my own issues aside, and I will get there in the end. But I met Saul on Nancy's. I joined the Sober Nights community on the Reframe app. And little did I know, little did I know that Saul was going to throw a blinder at one point to say, well, I'm off. Thank you very much, everybody. And I remember sitting there on the meeting going, what? You can't do that. What are you going on? No, 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 no. So, and then the next thing on our actual community group, there is this, well, someone's going to have to take Saul's place. And I was like, what's going on? People are saying, oh, will you do it? Will you do it? And again, this crazy mind of mine said, this is what you need. This is what you need. Responsibility, not just for your family, but responsibility is what you are going to do in the job when you quit for other people. And I know I can say this now. When I say responsibility to them, we are all, that's in one pot together. There's one thing about the sober nights I will say is we are all pushing for each other, and there's no doubt about it. And that's why I think our dynamic works so well. They put me on. So first of all, we just did it on the forum, and then as a little time went by, we've all been Marco Polo in this amazing app that everybody seemed to talk about for months that I had no idea or even any inkling to even look at. Because again, decluttering, I was trying to get rid of things, not more. but thankfully, everything does come together as a big story in the end. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. So we went on to Marco Polo, and we are, we're not a huge group. There's 25 of us on there and growing. We sort of grow bit by bit. And that's the nice thing. It's evolved like our journeys. They're evolving. And so the nice thing is we have people on there from still sober curious right through to people like myself, who are absolutely alcohol free and 500 plus. So everyone, and we've got people on the sidelines who've joined, who are just listening and looking at what we put on. Game bloody changer altogether, because hearing somebody from Texas to New York, from New York to Australia, from Australia to Scotland, you suddenly are not alone anymore. I thought I was alone in my own little community where I lived. I'm not alone. When I first started this, I had a farmer walk into a pub, my pub, or the pub that I work in, and he leaned across the bar to me and said, "Can I have an orange juice and lemonade, Tim?" I went, yeah, certainly. So, yeah, you can have anything you like. What is it? Orange juice and lemonade. Orange juice and lemonade. I said, I know. And he said, how did you do it? How did you do it? And I said, well, do what? He said, stop drinking. And so I said, okay. And so I've got my nights, and now I've got him as well, who I send WhatsApps to with little bits each week. He stayed very under the radar with it, but yeah, he's heading into his 7 months now and getting ready for his first Christmas, and the joy it brings you, You'll have all seen me crying on here, and I don't care anymore. I'll cry when I bloody want to, because they're happy tears. Happy tears are the best thing in the world. They are, they are so good. But when he sent me a WhatsApp about 2 weeks later, well, mate, I'm on a tractor, I'm going up and down the field, and all I sent back was just the old, don't forget, fall down 6 times, get up 7. Very simple. We'd all done it already. And he sent me back. Honestly, it was like I sent him a golden nugget. And when you get that, you suddenly realise what it's all about. You've got to give not just yourself to it. You start to give it to others, and that is the joy of it, without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The connections that have been made and the unexpected encounters, like we went and had a nice dinner. We had a date night, which rarely happens these days, mainly because I'm like, I don't want to put on pants. No. But we went and we got all dolled up, and we went and had a date night, and Ryan ordered a non-alcoholic beer. And he always says, bring it in the can, unopened or whatever it's in. And we recognize that, like a lot of servers, it's just habit, right? Like you work in a bar, so like you're just doing things, you're on autopilot. And so she brought it over, and he said, I totally trust you. I just want to make sure, because drinks can get mixed up at a bar. Also, you can put 2 drinks up and they get mixed up.
I'm 100% right. I've had this only last week. We had you've seen pictures on my refund members like IG. I'm actually on a ground crew for a balloon crew. We do the Virgin balloon, and Pete, who's a pilot, he's flown all over the world. His wife, it does all yoga and mindfulness, and she's been a brilliant help to me. he calls me the Duracell bunny because he can't believe the energy levels I'm at now. And he thinks I need to read. He actually was a great, when I first started, going just a slightly dark change. But again, it's little comments from people that helped you on your way, because he turned around to me and he said, Tim, you know what you remind me of? He says, you remind me of my laptop. He says, my files are all corrupt. And he says, your brain, he says, I have never met anyone who works in the way you do. You can, where you drag stuff from, and names, people, places, information, when we're out doing this, he says, it blows. He says, I can't cope with you at 4:30 in the morning. That's why you drive the minibus and I have Keith in the other truck, because I cannot cope with your brain. He says, reboot.
Control Alt Delete.
Turn it off, reboot.
That's hilarious. Well, that same night, he asked, and she took it back to the bar, and the next thing we know, the manager comes over, and he has the same drink, and he sits it down, and he says, I was actually working at the bar. I have been sober for how long? Like 20 years.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
20
like a
years.
very long time. And he said, I poured your drink myself. And he actually shook Ryan's hand and said, how long have you been sober? And he said, so I can attest to it. And I want you to know I take these things very, very seriously. And I appreciate you asking. And they had a little moment, and he even brought us a free appetizer and all that. And it was a great moment.
Absolutely awesome. And I had a similar one. Like I say, we had a work to do. We were out. And Pete said, I'm going to get you the Guinness, 0 Guinness. And because this bit of time had gone by and we were talking, and that's the thing I've learned. I do believe some of my issues with dopamine, as far as that goes, is I possibly got over when they handed them out, they handed me the 2 sachets I didn't need. And so he sat down and he put it in front of me. And of course, that's probably the first time I've ever been given a drink but not actually seen it pour. And I did exactly, I was about halfway down. I thought, oh, do I feel, oh my God, do I feel? And I know the atmosphere was great. And but I suddenly had this panic. I thought, he's brought me a real Guinness. And I did exactly, unlike self, I got up and walked to the bar. And I just stood there and I said, because I was without a doubt the only person drinking non-alcohol drinks. And the girl said, no, it was for you, wasn't it? And she said, no, it was definitely 0 Guinness. Definitely 0 Guinness. And I said, thank you so much. That's all I needed to know. But on that, going on that subject, being in my bar, being there at night now, we are selling more. There's no doubt about it. The landlord I started working for, he never saw, he sold 1 bottle of Corona Zero. And I turned around in day one and I said, no, you've got to do a bit more here. This isn't good enough. And he said, well, what do you want to try? I said, let's get some Guinness. Do a Guinness. No, they won't drink it. I said, they will. I promise you they'll drink it. And, put it in and they will come. And they do. And people now, we have people regularly, Friday nighters, they'll come in, they'll have a couple of pints of Guinness and then they'll be on the Zero. And we sell more Zero. No, I'm not. I don't work for Guinness or Diageo or anybody else. We sell more 0 Guinness than any 0 alcohol drink you could imagine. Mm-hmm. We have now talked him into, so we do cocktails. Mo does them himself. Mo's the most incredible guy. I always say, Mo's been a big help to me. I've been looking at all his culture from Persia, and I love all that, and this is the other thing, expanding your mind capacity, taking more on board. But he has now agreed, and we went for the 0 gin. I'm going to put a warning out here, because my wife works with a guy who is 100% alcohol free. I haven't met him yet. We are going to meet over Christmas. And she came back to me and she said, oh, I wasn't happy when I told him you've got 0 gin. But it was an absolute, he said, no, he mustn't. And I thought, and even the bottle still remains unopened on the bar. And I'm a little bit, do I want to taste this one? even if there's the remotest chance. I think the other thing is as well, this whole thing about the dopamine and what happens, but also, I mean, we all know how important now, as we've learned through our journeys, like our gut health and all that. I feel I could be triggered as much down there as I could up here.
Yeah.
Because my tummy isn't my brain, but if I put something into it that actually is imitating beer, is that going to send the wrong messages? Big question, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is actually, it's funny that you say that because, Ryan loves the NA beers and he drinks them and he doesn't have a trigger and it doesn't affect him, right? This this hasn't been happening long enough for them to really like study. But my brother, on the other hand, who is also in sobriety, he doesn't drink NA beers or zero proof wine or anything because he's like, I don't want to drink alcohol. And when he said means that, he means like obviously not NA beer. It's not that. He's like the same thing though. He's like, I am afraid that it will flip something in my mind that won't be able to flip back.
Flip it off, yeah.
Right? Because at what point does the NA option no longer suffice what I need? And I'll be honest, I don't know how many of the podcasts you've listened to, but I've been very open about the fact that I was not very, okay, so I was not very trusting or nice the first year of Ryan's sobriety. I wasn't mean, but I was very well, not mean, but I was very non-trusting and I had very valid reason. And that was one of the things.
Don't worry, my wife was exactly the same. I still think she doesn't actually truly believe it today. So.
Right. So that was another thing is I went to him initially and I was like, are you sure you're not just transferring your addiction? Like now you're drinking these NA beers because with addiction, the actual use of a substance is just a symptom of the bigger problem. So even though you've eliminated the mind altering component of it, are you still satiating that addiction? Like you still have to trick your mind into thinking that you're drinking a beer, or you're drinking a cocktail, or you're drinking wine or whatever it is. And I did not like it at first. But as everything's on a, spectrum. Even the other day you told me, you were like, I don't think I've had an NA beer in like a while. Just, they bloat me and all this stuff.
I'm pleased you said that because I've got 2 cans that have been sat in the fridge for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's like anything else. It's an individual journey, right? And and then they have all of these marketing for infused drinks, like, get a buzz without drinking alcohol. And that's very misleading.
I don't believe the hype.
No.
I just don't believe the hype. And I will not believe the hype. I've been fooled too many times.
Right. And that's the thing is you're like, it's not the drink that I don't trust. It's me.
No. I mean, I'm sure their intentions are good, but I don't believe the hype.
No, and I have a hard time believing the intentions are even good.
Sorry, on that subject though, I also worry, particularly in the work I'm doing, I do worry about, and I was in a very awkward situation where somebody ordered zero Guinness and let a child of 12 drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is becoming almost now a bigger worry for me than anything else. I'd hate to say it to any of the big companies, but I hope to God this isn't your way of getting people to drink and say it's not the real thing. Coca-Cola is the real thing, whether you drink it zero or not.
Yeah.
And so to me, Guinness is still bloody Guinness in a can, and you're actually tuning them in to that look, that brand. And I shouldn't, people would probably want to shoot me from the big groups, but I would say this to them. If it might appear on the surface to be a health provider, but there is serious implications that I worry
Very,
about. It was the same
very,
when all this.
yeah, very
Well,
slippery slope. That's for
Well,
sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
like, we don't sell candy cigarettes anymore. You know,
exactly.
like,
no,
Yeah.
there's a reason for
no.
that because we thought, it's probably not a good idea. And I think, it's a form of grooming, isn't it? You're teaching
Oh,
kids at a
absolutely.
young age, like, it's it is the act of doing something. It is what is the
Mm,
detrimental? Is it the alcohol or is it the act of? It's both because people have shown to be able to moderate and can get drunk or drink alcohol and not make poor decision. But at what point is you're addicted to the actual act of it? I mean, there's no
mm,
reason that like why do you want to be pretending to drink a beer? Well, it's because as an entire world, I mean, since the
mm,
beginning of time, we have been selling escapism. Life is hard, so you need to like turn the volume down. And I'm not saying you don't need
mm,
to turn the volume down, but it's about, I want to teach my daughter that if you can create a life that you don't feel the need to escape from, that you're doing better than 99% of the population. Create a life that you wake up every day and you don't feel the need to escape. Not that you're not going to have bad days, but that was the biggest driving force behind me stop quitting alcohol 6 months ago. Was my brother was in active addiction for 20 years. I never thought he would get sober ever. And when he
mm.
did, he called me after like a year and a half and he's like, I'm ready to see you now. And I remember I looked at Ryan and I was like, if I don't get my ass to Texas and see my brother, I'm never, ever going to forgive myself. I haven't wrapped my arms around him in 20 years. I mean, yeah, I had, but not sober. And you got sober. And all of these things are happening in my life that I have little to nothing to do with because I don't have control over anything outside of this. And so, me not drinking, and I'm not saying this is what everybody should do, this is just me. I thought, I don't want to be clouded. Like, I have already lost so much time with these people over things that I can't control, right? I can't control your drinking. I can't control my brother's use. But that time was taken away. And now I get something that the majority of people don't get. I get an opportunity to have it. I don't want to say have it back, but like almost start over, like a whole new chapter. I don't want to be clouded. I don't want to have everybody over for Thanksgiving and me get buzzed from drinking wine and feel like shit the next day I mean, how many years did I beg and pray that people in my life were going to get sober? How many times did
Yeah,
we go out to dinner or vacation and me get nervous and anxious because I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. They're
yeah.
getting high or they're getting drunk and something bad's going to happen. I don't want to be in
It's
that
it's
place.
that classic, Jessica. It's that classic, and I keep it as a screenshot on my phone, and that is that your genetics load the gun and your environment fires it.
Mhm.
And I see it. It works in families. I was adopted, um, and
My mom was adopted.
I I know and I am starting to do a lot more work with my inner child now, and getting proper mental advice on it because I didn't know I was adopted until I found the paperwork by accident at 14. Um, and that, I will say this, it broke me. It broke me. And I probably started drinking at 14, uh, secretly. Um, and other factors then because it was just such a massive shock to me. And recently I actually did see a program, there was a program I mentioned before, a lady, I'm trying to get the book, something I told, but I can't remember. She's been looking at that whole nature nurture thing, and that's something I actually had talked about on Nancy, and that is, I, I accidentally got hit by a horse in the head and ended up having to have a scan, and then they found a kidney was a bit iffy, and they said, "Oh, did you have an hereditary line of this?" And I said, "I have no idea." So I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Now, in fairness to my adopted parents, I had no intention of doing it and they were very elderly by now. I said, I don't have to tell them. So I found out, and I met my mother, and I found out that both my sister had been a heroin addict. My half brother has got his own although and again, we both, I think that addiction shows that I got that again. It now absolutely emphasizes that my environment was probably my savior growing up because of the church background and everything else. But if I'd been in the wrong environment, God knows, I could have exploded by 21, 22. Because my own half sister did. She was, my mother, my blood mother told me all about how she walked the streets looking for. And I kept thinking, that could have been me as well. That could have been, amazingly, we played the same. He was in the forces, I was in the forces. He played sport, I played sport. He did languages, I did languages. And we'd never met. And suddenly I thought, oh my God, this does. And when this girl explained her book, I was thinking, I'm getting it. Because being adopted, you cannot change a person's genetics. And I do, my wife, she's always been amazed because she couldn't understand when we first got together why I wouldn't want to find out. And I was like, because you don't know what you're opening. You don't know what you're opening. But no, and being in now, I can look at it in a very different way. I can look at it, and again, the sobriety has allowed my mind to not always, but certainly find settlement at places, and help to interpret them. Certainly not at 2 o'clock in the morning with talking to it about a friend on Facebook. In fact, when I went back onto Facebook, I hadn't been on Facebook for months and months, and I got slightly embarrassing. I got people going, "Oh, you're alive then?" We wondered where you were. We wondered why we hadn't had the phone call at 2 in the morning. Oh, how embarrassing! Oh,
Good old Facebook. If you ever just want to feel some way about something, just get on Facebook.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, no, as we were saying, but yeah, it's an amazing thing when you start looking at that whole
genetics.
Genetics and stuff.
Oh yeah. My mom was adopted later in life. Not the same situation, but she was adopted. So the grandparents I grew up with were adoptive grandparents, and my father was never around. So, when I started my mental health journey 4.5 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was, I started from ground zero. I said my mom was adopted and my dad was never around. So I don't really have any medical history. I know a couple of little things, but not really. And I did the same thing. I was like, sorry for the bill you're going to get in the mail, but I went to the doctor and they drained half my blood. And did all the tests so I can just see, because we have a daughter, and, you want to be able to hand that down. But I did know that my dad was an alcoholic, and, my brother and I have different fathers, but still, like, it was all around. My mom had a lot of mental health stuff. So, knowledge is power. It really honestly is. Knowledge is power. And you're right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Genetics.
I mean, I've learned through, again, I spent so much time making excuses to not have the time to read and do bits that now I walk around. My daughter's actually buying me some new headphones. Sorry, I forgot all the stuff. But she's actually, they all sit there looking at me going, "What are you listening to? What are you listening to?" I'm going, "I'm listening to a book at the moment." Yeah. What is it? I've got Chapel on at the moment. Yeah. I'm a bit of I like to jump between bits. Again, part of my personality, which again didn't help with the drinking, is the fact that I don't think I've got a very stable mind. But I mean, when I read, I tend to read a book here and a book there and a book here. So I keep having to offload my phone with books because, okay, today I need to look at that book again. So I'll revisit. But, again, without listening to these books or reading them, so many people have more time to do that. I wouldn't be where I am, and I certainly wouldn't have the clarity I have now. And I got a diary. I know, Ryan, you talked about journaling. and how important it is to you. It's become my absolute bread and butter. I've never written so many notes for a long, long time. Although my wife would say my epileptic spider writing, she doesn't know how I decipher them. I said, have you seen my doctor's writing? But I have found that an absolute godsend. It gives me references. And this year I've actually gone, I get the Resilience Agenda diary, which is one online that I saw, and I did a weekly one. But this year I'm doing a daily one, so I can actually bang it in every day. And yeah, it's become part of my norm. It's like today. So today, I mean, I've got to bring it up because we're getting towards Christmas, and there's a bit of a jolly man here. I've got a bit of a Dickensian Britain theme going on over Christmas. And so I set last week for my sober nights. We're going to do, so the week before on a Sunday, we do a pause for thought. And the pause for thought was about doing a to-do list. Rather than write Santa's list, write your own to-do list for January. So I said, and that can be anything. It can be anything on there. It's not about what you want. It's about what you need to do. So your to-do list for January, we're going to obviously share each other's on our polos. And then the next week, or the last week that's just gone. So every day through December, I've been sending them records. My extensive Christmas record collection has expanded tenfold. We've just had, do you remember Scorpion? Did you watch the series Scorpion? About the guy,
the TV
the
show?
IQ? You remember your TV show?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, they had a kick-ass Christmas on there, so I put that one. So each day I tried to either do an album or a song individually. So we started off with a few, we've gone through, but they've all got something that, again, it helps the mind keep ticking on. It's like we did Christopher, we did the Spaceman Came Travelling. Just pause for thought on that one for a moment. And then we can do, so we've had a bit of fun ones. We've had a bit of CeeLo, of course. We've had a bit of CeeLo. And then as we get towards Christmas, I should be pulling out the real rare ones for them.
Nice.
But you've got to do it. And but they know it. And the great thing, so this week we're going to be doing past, present, and future. And that's something I was going to say to you guys today. So for me, in my journal and with this week, I've been reflecting on what I've done, how we've dealt with Christmases in the past, the preparation, and I've got a big thing with the PPPs, poor planning and preparation, perfect planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. And I keep doing my P's all the time, and we'll come on to that, won't we, in a minute, P's. But I do that, so everyone in the group is going to do their past, present, and future, and that's something I would suggest to viewers on the podcast to do. Take a real long, hard look. So I always do a Christmas Carol, and I always listen. It's not a very long book, but everyone, we all know A Christmas Carol, and Dickens wrote so many other stories at Christmas time. And one of the original books he did was The Christmas Carol, and we'd all do that. And when you're sober, read it. Because when I read it sober, it meant so much more. All the different backstories to it. Marley's chain, look at that. My chain was my alcohol. I wasn't dragging money around. My jaw didn't fall open. My jaw was falling open because I couldn't hold it open, hold it shut. Those chains I was dragging, I don't want to look out the window and see my children and other people's children dragging those chains across the sky. Now, on the other book, he's got the chimes. And the chimes is all about a guy who's a porter of a church, and the bells are ringing out. We forget, the cities of our towns were ringing all the time. And this guy's haunted by the bells, and he addresses these goblins on Christmas Eve that are all ringing the bells. And so the crossover is there. But the key to it is, if we can all sort out our Christmases past, present, and future, and mine certainly already, my future wants to be helping people rid themselves of those chains.
I love that. I love all the literary references, and I know that you're itching to get to your hot and heavy question, but before we do that, I have two things. So I love the Dickens reference. I think a lot of people have seen the play or have seen movie derivatives of it. Not very many people have actually read A Christmas Carol, and they don't realize how dark it is. I think people are very shocked about that. And just, this is a little bit of a squirrel moment, but I was in performing arts my entire life growing up, and I loved theater. And I remember the very first play that I was in at the community theater in Texas, where I grew up, which you have now seen, surprisingly enough. And I was like 6 or 7 years old, and it was A Christmas Carol. They do it every single year. It's, whatever. And one of the sisters of Tiny Tim got sick that day or had something going on, and she only had one line, and they said, well, she's sick, who knows the line? And I know it. And I just thought that was my moment. And so I got on stage and I had my line, and I loved it so much. So I've always had this like affinity for A Christmas Carol, because it was like, being 6 or 7, that line, like, I was convinced everybody in the audience was like listening to me, and that was like my moment. And I don't want to go back and relive it, because in my head it was still my moment, and I'm going to have that. So I have always had a love for Charles Dickens since then, because of that experience. So it's kind of ironic or strange that you brought that up. And I love A Christmas Carol, and reading it is far better than seeing it or watching it, as I think anything is. You read the books, and Wicked just came out. I read the book Wicked a long time ago, very different. But also, you're talking about Christmas in England, and I noticed you said Santa and not Father Christmas. I was really hoping the Father Christmas would come out, and that's okay.
Father Christmas, I mean, I still put out on the side, I've got a book. It's actually an old money. It's the Father Christmas, the snowman. I'm trying to think of the
Frosty.
oh, dare I not remember? But I've got my mother got me Father Christmas the book, and it's still, you can still turn the pages just, and there's 2 of them on the side on the table by the tree in the front room. One is The Night Before Christmas, and the other one is Father Christmas. And his preparation for his journey. And my favourite, I know it sounds silly, but what sold it for me was the fact that he got up when he was so grumpy. And he was like, oh, God, I've got to get my boots on. Oh, there's a cat. Get out of the way, cat. One day, and then I love the closes with him tearing the calendar and looking at a picture of Hawaiian Beach somewhere.
I love Father Christmas. Like, I love the cultural differences too, right? Like when people start talking about that. So, when you said Santa, I was like, where's Father Christmas?
I should have
read it.
Now I'm going to put that on my list. I had no idea about that.
Oh man, Christmas gift.
Yeah, I love that.
Christmas gift, total Christmas gift.
And there's the boy called Chris. I just actually, I can't tell a lie. I'm going to let everybody know. When I get my break on a Sunday, I come back, and my wife and I, and it's a thing we've always done with the kids, and even Matilda was here on Sunday. We sat and watched The Boy Called Christmas. Is it A Boy Called Christmas? The one with, sadly, if you know, with Dame, Maggie, who died this year. And she did one about how they find the elves and the woodman, the true story of St. Nick, you could say.
St. Nick, right. Right. Yeah. Santa and Father Christmas have definitely, it's like a long game of telephone. It's definitely evolved over the years.
Well, we can blame Dickens for that, though. We can blame, going back to Dickens, we can blame Dickens.
I love
Dickens is the man who brought Red Santa to us. He was the man.
I know, there's a whole history there.
It was all very, and I know Grace in our group, she'll love it when I mention, people forget the pagan symbol of it.
Right. It is a pagan holiday.
We must be all inclusive here. We've got to remember the solstice and all the rest of it coming up. But I'm afraid I'm gonna have to give you it now. God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. And I'm waiting for the bucket to come down now.
Well, my sophomore year in high school, I did choir my entire thing. I did all the singing and the dancing and the acting and all that stuff. And I remember my choral group from high school got invited to go sing at the Queen's Gala concert in London. And so we flew there 3 months after 9/11. That was the first time my mother saw, machine guns at an airport. That was interesting.
Wow, that's incredible.
And we left 2 days after Christmas, and we actually participated in the Christmas parade in London. And Ryan has been wanting to do an England, Scotland, Ireland tour. And so I always tell him we are not going at Christmas. It was beautiful and I loved it and it was a great experience. It was cold and wet. And we're not talking about pretty and snowy. We're talking about rain and cold and wet. And I'll have to send these pictures to you. But I have a picture of us sitting somewhere on the side of the road because we had to be at the Christmas parade at like 5-6 o'clock in the morning, even though we didn't go on later. So you're just sitting there sort of like in the middle of all this controlled chaos. And we're in front of like your typical red phone booth. And we are all just sitting on top of each other, like get our body heat. But it was one of the, even though it was cold, like it was one of the best experience, like being in London at Christmas. And the funniest thing was too, we thought, oh my gosh, we're going to sing for the Queen at her gala concert. It's exciting. She didn't even show up.
Wow.
She did not even show up. She was like, she said that she had something else going on. And I'm like, right.
Shame,
like, not this, not this.
Shame.
But it was so great. And I remember the town crier and he would always come and I got like pictures and, you know, it was really cool though to experience a holiday in a different country and especially London. Like it was so beautiful. And I remember, we thought we got away with something at first because there were mini bars all in the hotels to get back to sobriety. You know, we're a bunch of like 16 to 18-year-olds. And I guess being from the States, they didn't realize like, you know, you have to specifically request to have that taken out, you know, like here it's very different.
Absolutely.
So I think I had a friend, you know, no names, but who got away with it the first night we were there. And then they had everybody in there taking those out. Taking all of the little mini bars out of the room. So, you know, we thought we got away with something. I did sneak away to a little jazz piano bar. I'm 16 years old.
Wow. Brilliant.
And I don't know how I got away with it, and drank a martini and listened to jazz music. And I thought that I was
did you listen to Charlie Brown's Christmas album? Charlie Brown's Christmas album is the best jazz Christmas album you can get.
It is. And we saw the Buddy Holly story at the West End. And as much as I love Broadway, the West End is a beautiful theater.
I'm not going to lie. I in my past, I may have had a bit of a dabble with the roar of the grease paint and the swell of the crowd.
So I have a little.
I do.
Yes, so we will be back, and we'll have to meet up with you in the spring or the summer where we can actually walk the gardens and enjoy all of the beautiful scenery.
We should do a podcast from the UK.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
That would be better.
So we'll have to link up. I had to throw that in there at the end, but I know that he's itching to get to his favorite question.
Well, actually,
come on.
I got actually two questions, and we'll get you out of here because we were talking about the first however many days is. Really working on yourself, putting in the work, right? Really the first year, it's all about you. And then now we're kind of in like a maintenance phase, right? Where we're, still doing the work, but we've kind of got that licked. So where, and you and I've talked a little bit about this, but where are you seeing yourself in the future now? As you go forward, where's your, what are you seeing as like a role for yourself?
Well, I definitely want to move. Well, firstly, with the sobriety side of things, I have already written a list of my to-dos, and one of them is without a doubt is structure. I need to have structure going forward. I listen to people like yourself and other people who do the 75s, and the one thing I've said all along is, as I've gone on this journey so far, whatever people call it, the one thing started running again, doing bits, doing that, testing the water on my legs, testing myself. 2.5 stone lighter near me, like yourself. The benefits of health are now playing a big factor in where I go next. And one of those is, like I say, the top of my list really is you've got to make sure you're structuring what you do next. And that is why the journal is going to be so important. That routine. I would never ever, and this is the reason when I heard Peter and when I heard one or two others say they're not going to stay with Reframe. If I stayed with Reframe for one thing only, it would be my daily task checking, because that is so important to me. And that then triggers me to just check with my groups. It doesn't take long.
Yeah.
What it takes is mental approach. And so the structure will help with that. The daily task will set the ticker going for the day. And then for me going forward, without a doubt, I would give up the bar tomorrow to go and run a bar that was 50-50. I see the future of family restaurants, bars, as somewhere you can bring anybody at any time and I know I know I said families, but when I say that, I still believe in Challenge 25, and I still believe, as we spoke earlier, I don't think children should be encouraged to try the non-alcoholic drinks. There should be enough there for them. They should be catered for, but for me, there is the templates I've seen and what people are doing. I'd like to walk into a bar with my wife who wants a nice glass of Sauvignon Blanc, and I want a glass of something else. And there should be no issue, no stigma, no, oh, look, what are you on tonight? Oh, don't do zero, across the bar,
Yeah.
I want none of that.
I would agree with that.
And also, I want to be able to go and tell others and meet others. And if I've got somebody at the moment who is 100% sober curious, who I engage with whenever I can. And I've got another, like the farmer, my friend, the farmer. I engage with him whenever I can. I see the longer I've been in it, the more I want to help others. And that's where I'm taking my journey.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, because it's almost like you're going in your own kind of coaching role. I mean, a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, I think that's amazing, especially when you got, people coming to you at the bar that you work out, which is, which I know had to be a struggle at first, but
it was not easy. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And it still isn't. It still isn't. It's simply because I have to look at people, and it's almost, well, I've said to Nancy, actually, Nancy is my, we are accountability buddies for our squats.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually heading towards this year. I've done 25,200 and something squats. I started on 1st of January. I do around anywhere between 60 and 100 squats a day, hold the bar and go up and down and up and down. And that I shall carry that on whatever happens. It doesn't take that long. Again, it's all part of structure. But Nancy, we talk about it, and that's just it. You've got to learn to take that role forward. You've got to learn, and I know if I was going to do a timeline now, I think I'm still only on day one. I'm still. Mm-hmm. It's now a chance to actually go out there and use the knowledge and information.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You should do a squat around the world challenge.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah,
I do squats every day. Nothing like that.
I was trying to work out how I could break it down into 10 miles.
That's right.
Every 10 miles. Believe it, it's not. I keep saying I always get to around about the 23rd when I look on my squat. It's an app. I look at it and go, oh my God, you're going to push it out of it. we need a 200 today.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm, me too.
All right, Tim. Well, now I've got to ask the question that's on everybody's mind is you got to.
Well, thankfully, I have been paying attention to the other ones, so I do know this was coming. But I'm going to take you back to a Christmas past. I was in the forces, and I got to live and work for a few years in Berlin, of all places, before the wall came down. And like all soldiers, we liked our nights out. And myself and a guy, he was actually a vicar's son. And I still keep in touch with him. He now lives in the wild woods of France. And we used to go and frequent a small bar at the back of Spandau in the Docklands area. And to be honest, I think we were probably the only two soldiers in there because it wasn't the sort of place people would expect soldiers to go. It was rather a bad place for not just the alcohol. And I would say nearly every drink was certainly led through with a patita de coco. And certainly the evenings were long. So every night we used to sort of stagger home, and we both, as you do, we'd both done a 10K in Berlin. Sorry, 25K run in the summer. And this was now heading towards Christmas, and we were sort of very, very the worst for wear. And a tip to anybody with padlocks on bikes, don't just put 1, 2, 3, 4 because it'll go. And we managed to get this bike, and off we went down the road. God knows what we must have looked like. I don't think CCT would have been quite the thing then. But we got outside this building that we'd passed many times before, and I looked at it and said, I've got to go. I've got to go. And he said, oh, gone. I went, oh my God. And I was like, so we fell off the bike, scrambled over a wire. And as I was scrambling, I looked and I stopped and paused, and there was a billboard for the 25K we'd run. And I went, that's going into my room on the way. I'm having that. Trophy alert. So we went off, and I went into a dark corner behind a bush in this particular property and started to start. And the next thing, there's an awful lot of shouting and lights and police sirens, and I'm like, what the bloody hell? So I actually abandoned ship, ran down. I'm hiding behind the billboard, trying to undo it, thinking, where's Sticky? Where are you? And I'm not doing the bull thing. I'm going on without it. Yes, you see police running at us with guns, and I'm like, what the bloody hell's going on? Well, you know, it wasn't me. And it's the German Polizei, and oh God, yeah, we've only gone and climbed into a building that's under surveillance for a terrorist attack, or or for something. It's just, honest to God, I had never seen so many people with guns pointing at me, away from me. And that was the last time I think I ever went for a drunken wee without having a
That's right.
good look.
Oh my God.
You're like really checking for cameras and shit
anyway,
at that point.
I had the punishment for it though. The punishment was the police guy, once it all calmed down and we sort of talked, she showed our IDs, and it was like, oh my God, what are you doing, you stupid boys? So we got in they said, we'll take you back to the barracks. So we got in the car, yeah. They had the last laugh because they literally, as they pulled round Spandau Prison into Smuts Barracks, I put everything on, lights, sirens, a lot. And they left me and Vicky with my billboard at the guardroom gates.
That's a good one.
That's good.
And I spent Christmas paying retribution on guard duty for...
That is a good one.
That's damn good, Tim.
The moral of the story is...
Don't pee in public.
Don't be in public. Always look around.
Don't pee in public, especially near Spandau Prison.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. That was a lot of fun.
That was tons of fun.
That was great.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you both in the UK. And when you come over, we will definitely be getting together. And I want to wish everybody, and you and your family. And I tell you what, it'd be nice. My daughter, it's funny, my daughter's 16. I know you've got a daughter as well. We ought to try and get them to communicate at some point so they can compare fathers. Yeah, that was a journey. She actually, right again, I will say, she actually, again, was one of the biggest, when I made that choice and I went there and I came home and she flipped the phone and she put a picture of me lying on a mat on the bathroom floor, all on this red mat, just lying there fast asleep like a little baby. And she said, do you remember that night? And I said, I'm so sorry. I remember it well.
He and our daughter have become very close in sobriety.
Yeah.
So they are eternally grateful.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
buddy.
I'm looking forward, and I hope you are. I want to wish everybody a very, very sober Christmas.
Same to you and your family. Thank you, Tim. We love you, buddy.
Thanks,
Talk
Tim.
to you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now.
If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get
Boom.
notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.